Now the number of those who laughed, putting their hand to their mouth, was 300 men. But all the rest of the people kneeled to drink water. The Lord said to Gideon, I will deliver you with 300 men who laughed, and will give the Midianites into your hands. So let all the other people go, each man to his home. So the 300 men took the people's provisions and their trumpets into their hands, and Gideon sent all the other men of Israel, each to his tent, but retained the 300 men. And the camp of Midian was below him in the valley.
So what do you think this selection process was really all about? I mean, normally, having a bigger army than the enemy is a good thing. And they were already outnumbered with the biggest army that Gideon could muster. And God says it's too many. And so they send away everybody who's a little bit fearful. And God said it's still too many, and down to 300 men to go and attack the armies of Midian. Is this just about demonstrating faith, or is there something else going on?
For me, I'm reminded of like Abraham's 318 men, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys' brand, it's like 300 is like a thematic idea of God delivering the enemy into the hands of this smaller group of individuals. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that comes to mind, like personally. I don't know if there's anything special. There's no gematria there, you know?
Yeah. Well, I suspect that the number would have been significant to the people at the time. Whether it actually has, divine meaning or not is maybe not the point. But the people at that time would have ascribed some kind of meaning to it, because we can see the same thing in the Spartan 300. Mm-hmm. I mean, the number isn't random. I'm sure that there weren't 300 men exactly, but they picked that number because it meant something to them.
What it brings to mind for me is like a thematic, reoccurring idea.
It's another pattern.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine God as like strategic general. I mean, he knows how many men he needs, and he's going to use them precisely, and he only needs what he needs. He doesn't need anything more than that. And we were just bringing it up in conversation that even Yeshua in his ministry, it got to the point where people were turning away, leaving him, and then he turns to his 12. Are you leaving me? He didn't need everyone, for his purpose. And, and that's a pattern that we should see.
Yep. Yeah, this is really relevant to what we're trying to do in Abram's 3:18, because what we were talking about earlier about how we're looking for people. And people who can do things. We need people who are good at organization and good at marketing and, who can do all these things, but we're not necessarily looking for the people who have the credentials to do those things. And here, God's criteria wasn't get the greatest warriors. That wasn't what he was looking for. He was just looking for the right 300 men, and there was nothing that anybody could look at and say, these are the right 300. God's the one who knew. And I don't think lapping up the water was really the thing. He just used that as the sign.
It kind of makes you laugh, though.
Yeah, it's like
laughs like a dog.
Yeah, he needs the wild men to go. But we can, if we went and looked for people who fit the criteria that we think matter, we'd be looking for people with years of ministry experience and organization. But our experience is that those aren't the best people sometimes, because they have a particular way of doing things and a way of thinking about things that doesn't fit what we're trying to accomplish. And it's just, if you pick the person who has the world standards of the right qualities, it's just going to throw the whole thing off into the ditch before we even get started.
I like how here too that they basically turn their swords against themselves. And I imagine like in an end time situation. I mean, why did they turn the sword on themselves? There was just such confusion that they started just fighting everything around them, and I think we're going to see a lot of that again, just in this world that we're in, that like so much more confusion and chaos is going on, and people are just feeding off themselves, attacking themselves, and
reminds me of like BLM and like LGBTQ. Like it's an imploding event of ideas that they cannot coexist together no matter.
See this confusion, and again 300 trumpets and those torches alight, You know, I mean, like, what are we called to do? Sound the alarm, light up, keep the torches lit. Gideon too, even having doubt, you know, or needing the courage.
I remember when I first started reading the scriptures, I was really quick to like read like the Gospels and like Peter denied Jesus after seeing all of that. Like, you know, it's like over time I'm like, you think you're strong enough for like all of these different situations, and you're so zealous and you have all this hunger, but there's just like, man, like I remember one time I was gonna lose my job if I didn't promise my foreman that I'd never talk about Jesus again with any of our customers. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I was like, all right, sir. And I shook his hand. And in a way, I felt like I was denying Christ, you know, because I'm like, there's just no way. Like, I thought I was ready to die for this. Like, I'm not even ready to lose my job for this. And then I prayed and I was like, God, yeah, I was like, I want to be a man who also like honors my word, so I need you to open up the door. And within a week I got a way better job. That was yeah, that was just amazing. But no, it's
a good example though.
Yeah. Like Gideon's story is like, you might think we're not like him, but we are in a lot of different ways. Like,
we already know the end.
Yeah.
I think we got to the point too is we don't want to keep kicking the can down the road, and we want to deal with things as quick as we can. We want to learn our lessons as fast as we can.
But like you said with your children, like you just hope like the next generation has an opportunity to do better than you did. We know that the stakes are high, but ultimately, what if we really looked at this as like, I don't have to do it perfectly in this lifetime. I just have to pass this on in a way that is good enough that they pick it up and they run with it. And they're going to do it better. And that's what I think about, like, even with Abrams 318 it's just that the next generation who's going to pick this up, they're going to be very different than us, you know?
We got to be okay with that.
And then the generation after you is going to be even more different. It's like, how do we build something with that in mind instead of building something that's like structured around like
our way.
Just or even when it gets to you guys being the ones passing on, it's like structuring something for your preferences. Like
God uses only broken people. You know, like we don't have to be perfect. You know, He doesn't expect us to be. We just are aiming for a target, a certain mark that we're heading towards. We've all got a goal that we're trying to achieve. You know, and He's got His rules in place to help you get you there. You know. Yeah, we know that. We have to play by the rules. That's what life is, right? I mean, even sports, everything. It's like there's no rules. It's just chaos, and these guys are turning their swords on everyone. You know, out of the confusion. That's just so crazy. You know, they didn't even just run away; they were turning on each other. But can you imagine 300?
300. That's gotta be amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a battle cry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we're learning how to love our brothers and to love the Lord with all of our hearts. You know, it's like this is the walk that we're on. And there's always a remnant. You know, being holy is making you uncommon. And that's really what I think he's just pointing out is like we are an uncommon people. You know, we are being set apart. And
some would say peculiar.
yes, we're very peculiar. We all are.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing is what's hard is that like we want to raise men to be leaders, and most churches or pastors, they don't want to be challenged by their young men. You know what I mean? So it's like we're actually doing the opposite of what the institution promotes. You know, I remember like when we were homeschooling and we were at that segment with their girls as teenagers and we're sending them off national debate clubs and going around competing. And I'm like, is it a good idea to teach your teenagers to debate better? You know, is this going to be a good thing in their home? But you want them to be able to do that. You want them to be able to communicate.
Well, with humility, because I think when that's not paired, you saw a lot of unbalanced.
Yeah,
young
humility
people.
is a big key.
Mm-hmm.
Big egos.
Yeah. Mom, what's your epistemic justification for that? Like, it's like, whoa, hold on.